Serie A finally starts up again tomorrow, so we had to do something. Welcome into the Calcio Connection podcast, connecting with you, Italian football fans from all over the world. Alex Donno alongside Jerry Mancini. Jerry, you're looking sharp in those glasses. You headed out to the shooting range after this or something? You're looking good over there.
Yeah, I don't have a comeback for that one, man. I use them sometimes when it's when I need them for my when I use a computer and stuff. They're not really high prescription, but yeah, they make me feel smarter. That's what they do.
You look smart, no question about that. It's been a long summer mercato, and Jerry, the last time we had a show together, it was a few weeks ago. A lot has changed, right? At that time, this was probably more than a few weeks ago. I was talking about how it looked pretty likely Lukaku would be back at Inter, and that fell apart in spectacular fashion, and that Inter would sign Anatoly Trubin as one of their new goalkeepers, and that fell apart in spectacular fashion. Then the whole saga with Samardzic and his father / agent and how that fell apart. And also the last time we spoke, Lazio hadn't done anything. And Lazio ends up having a really strong back nine of the mercato, and Lazio is looking fortified heading into the season. So it's been an interesting turn of events here. And yes, Nick Diani is with us. How you doing, sir?
What's up, boys?
Live from fabulous Las Vegas, or at least a green screen located in Vegas somewhere.
I wish.
Stadium Slim, boys. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So real quick before I let Jerry brag about Lazio's mercato, we're trying to get a trip at some point together to the actual Las Vegas, right? I know we've been talking about that in a group chat. I will drop whatever I'm doing if it means going to Vegas, and we will get that done.
I think it's the one thing I would do over Europe is Vegas.
Oh yeah. That's what I love to hear. Anytime, boys. I've been on a streak of 2 times a year for the past 4 or 5 years.
Oh, good for you.
I can't let that streak come to an end. So you let me know when you're ready. We'll do
That's
it.
great. I haven't been in almost 5 years, so it's been a while. I'm not doing it right the way the year. I think the last 2018, I think was the last time I was there, October 2018. So it's been almost 5 years. So yeah, before we talk a little more Serie A with Nick, Jerry, we cut you off before. Lazio are looking fortified. They've had a good mercato.
I think it's good, but I think people are overhyping it personally, if you're asking me, because we signed a lot of good young players, but who's to say that they step in right away and they kind of fill the void as quick as we'd like them to? Rovella still has to mature and grow in the game. Isakskin is coming from, I believe, the Australian league over to the Italian league, and that's a big major up. That's a big step up. So I like to see how he does in the Italian league. Nick, who else did we sign in this mercato? We brought back Pellegrini as well.
The forward from MLS, Castellanos.
Yeah, Castellanos. I think of all the players, and then there's Dachi
Kamada. Yeah, I like that move by you guys for sure.
I think if anything, Castellanos and Kamada will probably be the best signings of the mercato at this point. I think Castellanos a little bit more than Kamada, only because he really flourished with Girona last year, and I think that he really showed he can be a true number 9, and that's something that Lazio has been missing for a long time. No disrespect to Cheeto, he's been the only guy. I'm saying that the backup to him, we need someone who is ready to go for the next 5 years, and I think this guy could possibly be the hierarchy of Lazio's number 9, and I guess only time will tell. But I think that it's nice that we signed all these players, but at the end of the day, Sarri is always going to go back to what is his origin, is that he's going to play the same players that he had last year. And it's going to take time until you see these players kind of settle into the club. And I think the reason is that these guys came too late for him to kind of allow him to train with them. They didn't come a month early. They came a month late. So I think as the season progresses, you'll see changes into the lineup. But I think for the first few weeks, you're going to see Alberto starting every game. You're going to see the same back four of Romagnoli, Casale, Husai, and probably Lazzari. And then you're going to see up front, the Zaccani, Immobile, and Anderson are going to be for sure the starting three. But I think the only thing is that the midfield is a question mark, I think, if anything, because Savic is no longer in the squad. And I think that it's really tricky is what kind of starting three now will you have that kind of help you move forward. So,
and if I could put it another way, Alex, I jumped on. You said Lazio had a good mercato. I think people are saying that. I think I'm almost more in line with what Jerry is saying. I think it was necessary. Like, this is the way Lazio should have reinforced 2, 3, 4 years ago. And here we are under, year 3 of Sadi, and we're finally getting what is necessary. Whether it propels us to take the next step, listen, I think you two know more than most. I was pretty harsh on SMS all year. I thought that he was just checked out, right? I really, truly do believe that. But that being said, even half a version of him is better than so many midfielders in the league. So to replace that, it's not, it's not going to be a light switch. It's not that easy. Do I think Lazio can get there over the course of a season? I hope so. But, I'm hoping that this is step one of many to really make this team competitive year in and year out.
Jerry made a good point to me. We were talking off the air before we came on and before Nick hopped in. It's like, I know the season is about to begin tomorrow, but at the same time, we're hesitant to make Scudetto predictions, top 4 predictions, because the transfer market's not finished, right? That there are still many of the teams that we're watching that should be near the top of the table are not finished building their squads. Like Inter, for example, are still looking for another center back, and that's an obvious objective, which, they're not going to have one in time for their first match tomorrow, but within the next couple of weeks, probably. So, you don't really necessarily want to give a top 4 Scudetto prediction until you have that. And then another thing I'd like your take on, Nick, is, would you like to see, and I know it's difficult with these European transfer deadlines because different leagues start at different times, like Bundesliga and Premier League have already been in action before Serie A gets underway, but would you maybe like to see a little bit more coordination from UEFA, where maybe you start the transfer market a little bit earlier and maybe condense it and end it before all these seasons start? That way you know exactly who's on your squad before the season starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that seems so logical that I guess it makes sense why UEFA has never done it, right? And I think even the market itself is different in certain leagues. Like, it might close for all of us, but somehow, like, you can still sign somebody from the Turkish league like 2 or 3 weeks later because their transfer portal is still open or something like that. So I agree with you. I think the leagues should start and end on the same days, and I think that the transfer market should be, pretty uniform, or as uniform as we can get it. There's way too many variables out there, and for obvious reasons, Serie A is always behind, right? So we're the losers from that. It's not gonna, if you make adjustments, like the EPL is not gonna suffer.
Right.
Well, I want to say, hold on. I know that hockey and football is not the same thing, but if you look at the NHL, yes, they can make trades and deals throughout the year, but 90% of the time, they're not making deals in October, November, December, January, February, because you do not want to mesh with the chemistry. And here's the second thing is that they have a month where they bring players in and they train for 8 games and they try to configure what kind of lineup, who's going to be in their squad. They have an idea of who's coming to camp, and you kind of prepare. You don't want to buy 3 players. Now let's go back to football. You don't want to go tomorrow and you buy 3 center backs if you're Inter, because now all of a sudden you've already lost 2 months of training and you're going to throw a guy into the season 2 weeks late, 3 weeks late. By the time he actually gets to the right level of play and he's already adjusted into the team, there's 2 outcomes here. Either he will flourish, which is very hard because there's so much variables to work out, or he just crashes. And we see that a lot in a lot of leagues where with a lot of teams that it just doesn't work out because they didn't get that time. And it takes them an extra year now to kind of like train properly and get to that level where they're supposed to be with the team. That's how I look at it though. Like, because by the time you're in there, here Inzaghi and Sarri are prime examples. They're already set on their 11, and it's gonna take them a while to kind of open up to the new signings that they got. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
it took Onana a few months to finally bench Handanovic, and then a few months later he's gone. And I know like a player that Inter are getting linked to a lot the last couple of days, who I think at a certain point they're just going to decide they're not able or willing to spend the money, is Pavard from Bayern, but it's like they've already bid 10 million below asking price, which is a typical Inter move, and they're not going to raise the bid. So who knows? But if someone like that does end up on the squad, who I think is a good he's a good probably right center back. I don't really trust him at wing back because he can get burned, but I think as a right center back could be strong. But it would probably take Inzaghi 2-3 months to actually start using him consistently.
I got a question for you, Alex, and Nick can piggyback on this too. What the F is going on with Inter's mercato? Because it went from like you guys looking like superheroes to looking like big donkeys right now.
I can tell you exactly what happened, and then Nick can jump in as well. But the problem is that there's definitely a disconnect between the directors and ownership, where the directors, Marotta and Ausilio, like they know the types of players they're targeting, and then they get approval from ownership to go and make a deal. But then ownership decides, well, this is a little bit too much, or we need to try to hold them up on these technicalities, and then these deals end up dying on the vine. And so I thought our pal Nima put it best. They have like this weird moral high ground mercato that's cost them a bunch of players. Like, they were so offended that Lukaku had the audacity to negotiate with Juventus. They were, so offended by Samardzic and his father trying to get more agent fees on the back end. And so that negotiation went to shit. And then they tried to make Trubin the goalkeeper. They tried to kind of put him on stash for next year on a free, but he ends up going somewhere else. So it's like, it really, to me, it comes down. I still think the directors are doing a fine job, and I trust Beppe Marotta. I would trust him with my life. But when you don't get the funds you need and you don't get the proper green lights from ownerships to make deals when you need to make them, because you can't always wait for all other sides to drop out. I think that's why they've shit the bed on so many occasions.
We just can't get out of our own way in Serie A, right? I think that's just like the simplest way to put it. But I mean, for all the negatives that you just pointed out, I still think they did okay. I mean, Jerry, you gave them a little credit at the beginning, right? You reinforced some areas that needed it. I think Fratesi is going to fit in really, really well. I think Thuram is a good signing. I think, listen, I don't like the guy. I also didn't realize he's 34 years old, but Arnautovic coming in for the very low price that he came in for, what was it, 12 million at the end of the day?
It's a lot for a 34-year-old, but I think he can do the job. He's still got some goals left.
I think he's going to be an upgrade over Correa. I don't see any way that's not possible. Is he going to be able to replace
I would be an upgrade
over Lukaku? Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but to have him as an option, I think is a strong move. And I think they're going to have a lot of confidence in them after the season you just had. So I don't know. I'm pretty high on Inter this year. I think they're going to finish top 2.
Yeah, and I think, and you didn't mention the goalkeeper, and obviously I love Onana, and I'm sorry to see him go, but I think for a year or two as a stopgap, I think Jan Sommer can do a really good job. And one of my best friends is a Bayern supporter. He speaks very highly of Sommer, and I've watched him play a lot for Switzerland, and very good distribution, good reflex saves. So I think he's going to do all right, and I think there's enough continuity. Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's enough continuity with Inter. Obviously, they need another center back, and I know I don't know exactly how long he's going to be unavailable, but I know Cherby is not going to be able to play tomorrow. But overall, they've got continuity from the midfield, and I think Fratesi is a nice addition. 2 summers ago, or even a summer ago, I would have said losing Brozovic is a tragedy, but I think it was probably the right time to move on, and Çalhanoğlu has shown enough playing in that Regista role. So I trust the midfield as is, especially as long as Barella is still around. And, one of the first names you mentioned, Nick, was Thuram. That was a move that I desperately wanted Inter to make about a summer ago, and it fell apart because he got injured last summer. I'm so glad they made that move on a free transfer this summer, because I think he and Lautaro together can be absolute dynamite. I think that's going to be a great partnership. So, again, I don't know how confident I'd be in thinking Scudetto, but I'm always, Jerry knows I'm always very cautious making bold predictions for Inter, but I feel pretty comfortable that they can have a strong season with the group that they have assembled, despite the fact that I'm not completely satisfied, Jerry, with the mercato. I thought they left a lot of opportunities out there hanging out to dry.
I can't tell. I don't think they're a top two personally at this moment, and I'll say why. I'm not solidified on that back end. I think that the defense right now gives me like a question mark of, will it be able to hold up throughout the season? And I think if there's anything that Inter has ever been known for, it's their ability to defend games so well that they're so hard to crack. They win 1-0 games. They win those tight margin games, and they don't concede a lot of goals. You know what I mean? Under Conte, I think they were one of the best defensive teams and attacking. I don't know. I just you tell me, like, yeah, okay, fine. You have Bastoni, you have DiMarco. Can you really trust De Vrij or Cherby late into their like these two guys cannot stay healthy. Like,
you can't trust him for much longer. Cherby was damn good last year. He was really good last year.
But you're asking a lot from a 35-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just looking at their lineup right now, like Matteo Darmian. I think he
was awesome last year.
Absolutely. But can these guys follow up? He's 33.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying, like, I'll chew my words all day. That's fine, man. But like you got guys who are fine. You got this new guy here, which Bisek, which I've heard good stuff about.
Yeah.
I can't really comment on him because I've never watched him play, but that's not a young back line anymore. Like, you guys used to have one of the best young back lines.
Yeah, I mean,
and like you had, what was it?
Skriniar and De Vrij when he was young.
Yeah,
and he was in his 20s, and then Bastoni came up. And fantastic.
Even D'Ambrosio before he left was such a pillar to that back line. I liked him. Now, okay, fine, he's up there. I think it was smart that they got rid of him now. But for what he provided, like there was like this staple of back line where they never really changed it up. They always stuck to their core, and it worked for so many years. Now I'm just wondering what the transition is going to be like for Inter's back end. Other than that, the defense, the midfield and the forwards are strong. I think even without Lukaku, you guys are still fine, man. Like, Thuram's a really good player. I don't know how you guys got this guy on a free. That is such. And you know what's sad though? What's gonna happen now is he'll be sold for 40 million next year.
Yeah, probably.
That's what's gonna happen.
You're probably right.
Like, I'm telling you, no one's gonna buy Correa. Not even a barbecue freaking would purchase him. All right, the barbecue would reject him.
They might have to sell a barbecue and then throw Correa in for free. Like, here's a barbecue with a free chef included.
Well, I was listening to the Italian, the Forza Italia podcast with Nima and Carlo. And Carlo said a funny joke, actually, which I didn't really realize this, is that I think Serie A has got this thing going on where we're collecting all these, like, so Correa's the barbecue man, but I forgot that Junior Messias is the delivery driver. The delivery driver for fridges.
Yep. That's what he was. Like 5 years ago, he was driving a delivery truck.
So my question then to you, Jerry, if you say that's the weak link in Inter is their back line, let's go through the top teams. We don't have to go through them one by one, but like, whose back line is like the best to you guys? I mean, I feel like everybody has their weaknesses.
Good question.
If they're not weak after the starting core group, everybody's pretty thin in the back. There's not a team that's sticking out to me off the top of my head where I can say, oh, okay, it's these guys. They're the best. You know, is it Juve with Bremer? I don't know. Who is it?
Well, I'll tell you this much. I have not given the time or the two shits for other teams.
Wow. You're not even Inter fan.
I'm Inter Lazio because this is I don't know why we're called the Culture Connection, to be honest. It should just be the Inter Lazio pod
That was
because
the name we came up with like 3 years ago.
I don't even freaking know why our name. I'll be honest with you, but
Yeah.
I follow Inter and Lazio religiously because I need to know what I'm talking about for Inter when I come on this podcast. I am not gonna like talk here and say I know everything about Milan. I think Milan's a fucking question mark. I'll tell you that right now. Milan's the biggest fucking question mark because I have no idea if that team. Like I agree with Nima. That team can either skyrocket to the moon and it's gonna be amazing, or it can backfire on them because
Right.
this like money ball shit they're doing with their team where like they're buying these cheap players and trying to save money and cut the edges. I don't know, man. That team's got a lot of question marks to me. But I can't tell you right off the top of my head like who they bought. That's how much I really haven't paid attention to them.
Would you just ask the man with the Milan jersey down
Yeah,
below?
Nick, who'd they buy? I don't even
dude,
know.
I'll tell you, I'm high on Milan. I'm wearing this jersey. I did a couple shows this week, but they were they're my betting pick to win the Scudetto. So I locked them in at plus 550. They're not. I don't believe they're the best team. I don't believe that they are even necessarily going to win the Scudetto. But in terms of the value and the realistic, chance for them to win the league, that's who I locked in. I think they're going to be very dynamic offensively. I think you just said they could go to the moon or they could crash and burn. Are they going to be Brighton or are they going to be Chelsea? Right? Like the guys they brought in, I think can be very, very dynamic. I think Pulisic is going to do really well there because they got rid of a lot of the garbage on the right side, like Macias and CDK and guys that, didn't really deserve to be starting. So I think he can get a position right away. Leao is dynamite. And now that you've put a little bit of offensive talent around him where he's not going to be the guy that has to carry the ball for 70% of the game, I think it's just going to open it up that much more. I think Nkunku is a really good signing for them. And if they get anything out of Giroud, I mean, if they get 10, 15 goals out of him, they're going to be a force going forward. So I think they'll miss Tonali for sure. But I think realistically, and you got it right here, Alex, are Napoli and Inter favorites? Yes, and they should be.
I'm actually Juve, a little bit. I know Napoli's had so much turnover, including manager. I'm actually surprised they're not a little bit higher than Inter as far as plus 225 to plus 250. This is my first time looking at it in a while.
Yeah, so they flip-flopped for a while. Yeah. I think Inter was favorites for most of the offseason. And certainly I'll get into that in a second. But listen, you can make a case, right? I think those two deserve to be favorites. Juve is playing once a week. I think that's a massive advantage for them. I think they have a coach and players that are going to have a huge chip on their shoulder. They're going to play really, really hard. So they're going to be in the mix. But to me, Milan represented the most value out of the group that has a realistic chance, right? Listen, I love Lazio plus 1,400. I don't think it's going to happen.
How about a flyer? How about a flyer on Monza for plus 15,000?
Right.
That may be worth it.
Listen, dude, do me a favor. Just give me the money instead. So
fair enough.
That's the reason why I kind of made that bet with Milan. I hope that they're fun to watch, but we'll see how it unfolds.
Well, Juve's the same team, eh? They're exactly the same team. They only added 2 players in the mercato.
Yeah, true.
So what I say about Juve is that will they? Okay, I don't look at preseason and how they're playing in preseason. Preseason is a fucking throw in the garbage because you're playing a bunch of random, goddamn who knows about. Okay, that's what people forget. The problem is that when they have a 1-0 lead, do they sit back still this season and defend? Because when they did that last year, I think they lost a lot of games relying on 1-0 leads when they were playing so good till they score, and then they transition into this dinosaur football, which I don't understand. Like, I think the biggest thing with Allegri is, does he play more of a progressive kind of game where don't go back to your old style? You need to play an attack-minded game and fluid. Like, when you sit back, you put yourself in a situation that is very difficult to overcome. And I think the thing with Juve is how they approach the season in terms of how do they play. And I think that's the biggest thing for me with Juve. I think they do have a lot of talent. I just think that it has to transpire for 90 minutes, not for 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and all of a sudden you switch off for 40 minutes. Like, that's the thing with Juve for me. So I guess time will tell, right? But like, because Allegri's so stuck in his ways.
The one thing I'll say about Juve, man, is I don't think there's going to be a player in the league that's going to try harder than Dusan Vlahovic this year. I think this guy, like, he is going to have that monkey on his back, chip on his shoulder. Hearing the whispers, is he going to get transferred? Do Juve fans want him? What does Allegri think of him? The style doesn't work. I think this dude is going to have a monster year. I don't know if it translates into, goals or a league title for them, but I think this guy is going to be a handful.
I don't buy into that personally, that cliche. If you don't fit in a system, if you're not used properly, it doesn't matter how hard you try. You're just going to shit the bed. You know what I mean? If a coach doesn't use you properly and tells you to play a certain way and it just takes you out of the game, I don't know, man. I could be wrong. But
I hope you're right. I'm not advocating for him to play well or for Juve to have a good year, right? None of us are. But
I don't think. You're not going to find a fan of the three of us. That's for sure.
I'll use that example on Lautaro Martinez. He needs to play better, and he did play better last year.
Yeah,
because he was already molded, and he never changed the way he played. He's always played the same way. The difference is that he figured it out.
He got more consistent,
and it worked. I
think a big catalyst for that, I think, was obviously like his country won the World Cup, but he also got benched during that World Cup and didn't have a great cup, and I think that motivated him to kind of step up individually, because after that he hit a tremendous run of form that lasted for most of the rest of the season for Inter.
I don't know. Vlahovic
the emergence of DeMarco as well.
Yeah,
he was fantastic. Yeah, and I totally counted that guy out, and I'm sure the directors did as well, because I don't think they would have gone out and bought Gosens the previous January when they did, because they bought him as the Skriniar replacement, not really having any faith that DeMarco would become, or not the Skriniar replacement, the Perisic replacement, not really having any faith that it would end up being DeMarco being the Perisic replacement.
No, and I'm sorry, I meant not even on a personal level, which obviously he exploded, but I think just as he was starting to emerge, that's when Lautaro really had that good run of form. Like, I don't feel like that's talked about enough, is that those two rises kind of coincided with each other.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Jerry, any parting comments before we wrap up this episode? You excited to watch Lazio and Lecce on Sunday, right? Sunday is when Lazio opens an Inter tomorrow against Monza.
I hate watching football in August. I hate it. I hate it because it's so nice outside. I used to be the opposite.
Not here.
Like, for you guys, it's different.
Yeah,
like,
for us, we want to stay inside, crank the air conditioning.
When it's summer, man, I don't care about sports, to be honest. Like, I'm just outside enjoying, even until November. I'm taking it all in, because November here is still decent. After that, it's hibernation. Put football on. That's it. But yeah, I am excited to watch. I would say. I'm looking forward to Immobile this year. I know it's very tacky to say, but I think he's gonna have a bounce back season. And if I'm a betting guy, I would put some money on Capo Carinieri for Immobile this year. I would. I really would. 600. I think, is he plus 600? I take that in a heartbeat. I think that's good value, man, because you want to talk about a chip on his shoulder. There's a guy with a chip on his shoulder who's ready to bounce back.
Now Jerry subscribes to it. He didn't subscribe to it 5 minutes ago when I brought it up.
No,
now he subscribes to it.
It works when it's Cheeto. When it's Cheeto, it works.
Because he's a number 9. He's an actual number 9 who's proven. Well, he's won what? Four Capo Carinieris, 3, 4.
I think 4 out of the last 7 or something, right?
Yeah. So, like, I think this is a guy who the reason why I think he's got good value is because he won't play a whole 90 minutes anymore. I think that Castellanos will help him to allow him to play a full season. Yes, he's 33 or 32, something like that. But, like, I think he'll properly rotate the season, and I think that will help him a long way. I would take a chance on him. I think it's a long shot. If I'll be honest. Probably Osimhen's gonna win the Capo Cannoniere, but
Probably.
I wouldn't
tell you
count
guys
out
why he
Mobley.
won't.
Okay, why won't he? Is he going to get hurt? And who you got?
That's that. And this year is the Africa Cup of Nations. And that is something that I feel
I
like
didn't
is
know that.
overlooked when we're talking
Yeah.
about the odds. So he is the overwhelming favorite. You're right. Listen, he's the most complete striker in the league. I don't think anybody can argue against that.
No.
But he is going to miss a planned month of the season, right? Whether he gets hurt or not. And I think he already doesn't have the best injury record. And players seem to come back from that tournament beat to shit. I really think they are. And I think that's really going to have an impact on him finishing as top scorer.
Didn't he get hurt at the last African Nations Cup or like that?
I'm sure he wouldn't surprise me. But I know he missed probably close to 10 games last year, right? Like 7 or 8 games. And that's without a tournament right in the middle. He wasn't even in the World Cup.
I put my money on Mobley. Even if Savage, and especially that Savage is gone with Lazio, the goals have to come from Immobile. I think Savage had what?
He takes the penalty kicks too.
Yeah, he does. Still.
Yeah.
So that's good value there, actually. I might have to take on that tomorrow morning.
Not a bad shout. Nick, before we wrap it up, let people know where they can find you and the Kicks and Picks podcast and everything you have going on.
Oh, thanks, brother. Hey, appreciate you guys having me on here last minute and taking over your show a little bit. Always a pleasure. Yeah. You can find me. You can see my name is my Twitter handle. But our show, Kicks and Picks Podcast, at Kicks Picks Pod. We cover Serie A, Premier League, all the big leagues in Europe, putting out weekly betting episodes. So try to have some cool content along the way, some games, some great guests. Both of these guys have been on the show. And we give out, 3 picks each. There's 3 of us co-hosts. So we're giving out 9 to 10 picks every week. Love for you guys to listen. Let us know what you think, what your bets are, and try to level up and get to the engagement that you two guys have. So really appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate that. And Jerry, by the way, you owe, I can't remember how much the Korea transfer cost a couple of years ago, but you still owe Uncle Sharma for that. You check can be made payable to Uncle Sharma, who's actually watching us from India right now. So thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. Must be visiting some friends and family over there. We will talk to everyone again next time on another episode of the Calcio Connection podcast. Ciao.